Konnichiwa mina. Oriwa Jiminai. Cast your mind back to the 1990s. It seemed like that was the golden age for a particular type of video game. FMV, full motion video games. Interactive movies, call them what you will. There were a crap load of them in the 90s. Some of them were good. Some of them, well, you know. Anyway, lately FMV games seem to be making a bit of a comeback, and we're going to be taking a look at a newer title today. And that's no lie, unlike what most of the game's characters will say. それでは始めましょう。Contradiction, which may or may not be subtitled Spot the Liar or the all-video murder mystery adventure, depending on where you look, was crowdfunded in January 2014 on Kickstarter with a goal of £3,000. That's about $5,000. It was set for release in spring of that year, but developments took longer than expected, and it ended up being released in January 2015 on iPad and 6 months later on Steam, and that's the version we'll be looking at.
Kate Vine was a university student working on her PhD when she drowned in an apparent suicide in the tiny village of Edenton 1 week before the game begins. You, as Detective Inspector Jenks, who is quite blatantly stealing my look, have until midnight to investigate the drowning and decide whether it was a suicide or if there was something more to it than that. The game is divided into chapters, with each chapter representing 1 hour of your investigation, starting at 5 p.m. and ending at midnight. There are a handful of areas around the village for Jenks to explore, and in each area, you'll go about your investigation in one of two ways. If there's something of interest in the area, you'll see a magnifying glass on the screen. Click it, and Jenks will either pick it up or make a note of it. Most often these will be clues for your investigation, though there will be the odd 1 or 2 objects which are more along the lines of a traditional inventory item. You can't ask anyone about them, and their only purpose is to allow you access to more clues. If you're in an area with another character, you can interrogate that character about any clues you've found thus far. Simply click a clue you wish to ask about, and you'll see a video of Jenks asking about that clue, as well as the suspect's reply. Once the video ends, you'll see a list of statements summarizing that reply. It's here where you find the game's main mechanic. Once you've asked enough questions, characters will start making contradictory statements. Asking a character about an item might prompt them to say one thing when they said something completely opposite when being asked about another clue. Click the 2 statements that you think contradict each other, and they'll appear in the 2 slots on the right. If they turn gray, the statements do not contradict. If they turn green, then you've found the contradiction, and Jenks will press the suspect further on their lie. Once you've found enough contradictions, the game will advance to the next chapter. Each chapter introduces more clues, areas, or suspects for you to investigate. If you get stuck at any time, never fear, the game has a multi-tiered hint system you can use. First, you can click on this light bulb, and if there are clues in that chapter that you haven't asked about, or characters you haven't yet talked to, you'll see a message to that effect. Otherwise, it'll either tell you to call the chief, or state the blatantly obvious by saying there must be a contradiction somewhere. Speaking of the chief, if you need a slightly more specific hint, then head to this area of the map. Here, across from Brandon House, you'll find a phone booth. You can use it to call Jenks' boss, the chief of police, with whom you'll discuss the case so far, and he'll suggest a line of questioning you should pursue. If you missed something in the call and you want to hear it again, you can do so via the main menu. If you're still stuck after having called the chief, you can use what the game refers to as cheats. To do so, click the most recent chief clue in the main menu. You'll see a message you'll need to click 7 times. Once you've done that, the game will tell you the specific contradiction you need to uncover to advance the story. Contradiction, all told, is a short game, about 6 hours, but even having seen my playtime on Steam, I was surprised it took that long. The game just flew by for me, even with my playtime split over the course of 3 days. I never lost interest in the story, and I kept wanting to dig further and further to uncover more of the mystery. That, I think, is due mostly to the excellent performances by the actors in the game, including this man, one Paul Darrow, the reason I was drawn to this game in the first place. Now, without boring you too much with uber-geeky details, he was in a show on the BBC back in the 70s called Blake 7, which I saw and became a huge fan of through reruns on public television.
When I finally solved the case, though, as Jenks was in the process of arresting the guilty party, a worrying thought struck me. There were story threads that hadn't been wrapped up yet, and as the credits rolled, Jenks' narration confirmed there were details as yet left unresolved. I began to wonder, was I thorough enough in my investigation? Did I maybe get a bad ending by missing details? As I thought to myself what else I could have possibly investigated, the last image this game threw at me was this. There could be a sequel in the works, and I seriously hope there is. In fact, if I see a Kickstarter campaign for it, that may well end up being the first Kickstarter campaign I actually contribute to. Contradiction is easily the best game I have played for this show thus far, and is definitely a contender in the running for my favorite game in general. But this is a review show, and I wouldn't be doing a very good job of reviewing it if I didn't point out its flaws.
Thankfully, there aren't that many. The one glaring error that I noticed has to do not with how the story ends, but how it begins. Jenks makes this big to-do about how he has to solve this case by midnight, but it's never clearly explained why. What would happen if he didn't solve the case by midnight? Will the statute of limitations expire? Hell, does England even have statutes of limitations? I don't know. Also, although the chapters each take place during 1 hour of the investigation, there's no time limit within the game. You only get to the next hour once you've found enough contradictions, so theoretically you could spend 3 hours getting from 6 to 7 p.m. if you wanted. Put all those factors together, plus, let's just say, to avoid spoiling anything, the way the story is structured, and you lose any sense of urgency that the game was trying to impart. Really though, I think the superb performance of the actors in the game will still keep you engaged in the story the whole way, so while there may be no urgency, you'll still want to keep playing as much as you can to uncover all the lies. Lastly, it should be mentioned that in the PC version of the game, the visual effects, mainly those used for fire and to make the day seem like it's getting darker, are very noticeable, and I did notice a few misspellings in the subtitles as well. But when you consider developer Tim Fallon basically developed every aspect of the game by himself with very minimal funding, having to invest some of his own money, and a few setbacks to deal with, it's fine. I can overlook them.
Contradiction is $4.99 on the iPad, and on Steam it's $9.99. And it is definitely worth your time. And if you see a Kickstarter campaign for it, or for a sequel that is, or if you see it on Steam Greenlight, please do consider contributing and or voting for it. This game seriously deserves a sequel, if nothing else to wrap up all the loose story threads it left behind. Jikai made! Sayonara!
Thanks as always for watching, Mina. If you've missed last week's episode, I played Labronia, one of the gazillions of indie titles made with RPG Maker. You can click the link on the screen to take a look at it. I've also got a link to the entire Low Budget Gaming playlist if you've missed any episodes, as well as that of my Fallout 4 Let's Play. Let me tell you, I'm really having fun with that game. Feel free to take a look at all the links, and if you like what you see, leave me a like, and maybe even a comment. If you think other people would like it, then hit that share button as well. And as always, if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to Gemini Does Games, and follow me on Facebook and Twitter as well.